Good afternoon, everybody. This is January 25th. The sailing world keeps going around and around and around with crazy races in Auckland and big finishes coming up in France. And I was sort of hitting on the same events, but it's really the only thing happening in sailing at the moment, it seems. But it's a good thing we have it, right? But the West Marine U.S. Open Sailing Series did wrap up this weekend down in Miami with, I don't know if you guys were following it, but it's a pretty cool early morning 7 a.m. starts for some of the classes. And remember those days, John? Did you guys ever get up that early to go race?
When we had our trials in St. Pete in the 49er, they had a weather pattern that was like that, good in the morning. So we had 8 a.m. starts. So we were rigging our boat in the dark.
Yeah, it's amazing. I guess Miami didn't quite deliver as promised over 3 days. Not a whole heck of a lot of racing, unfortunately, for those guys. Sort of the certainly disappointing for the IQ foil guys to race, or girls as well, to race, get in one race over 3 days on Friday and sit around for the rest of the weekend. I don't know. It's just foiling.
The race down at Key West was pretty slow too.
Yeah.
Tough weekend for the foilers, I mentioned. So yeah, it's amazing that you can get off races in light air and old boats, but not necessarily on foiling windsurfing these days. So good for thought. Anyway, so who watched some cup racing?
Yeah.
delays. Yeah, but that was pretty wild. So let's do a quick reminder. We'll give it a watch. Nice day to be on the water.
Request a delay, please. Team UK, we copy that, and we'll add a 15-minute delay to the start clock, making the new start time 17:15.
Great moment for the team because we've obviously had a tough start, tough build up to this competition. So I'm incredibly proud of everyone. That said, we know we've still got a long way to go in this road. So whilst we've got ourselves into the Prada Cup final, it's just one step along the road, and now we've got to focus on trying to win that. And then after that, the Cup. So one step at a time.
One step at a time, huh? Whew.
Some big steps.
Yeah, I'd say so. Sir Ratcliffe, certainly happy with what he's got going on there. And anybody have any particular highlights of the race? I thought that start was pretty cool. After that, it was pretty wild. Ed, go for it.
Yeah, I mean, it was really fun to watch the fact that a couple of critical choices about how you tack or where you tack or when which way you go around the gate made the difference in the race. Like a regular boat sailing. And that just means that they're pretty equally matched, and, doing the right thing pays off. We saw two tacks by by Luna Rossa that, maybe, could have been smoother, and that might have made the difference. The second one allowed Ineos to get inside at the mark and go around ahead. That wasn't the end of the race, though. There were more lead changes, and ultimately came down to a pretty close deal at the end. A lot of people talking about the penalty towards the end, but the reality is that Luna Rossa was a couple lengths behind, and they did a big dive, smooth, but a good turn down to try and make it look closer. And it did get within a length, which is pretty close when you're going 45 knots. But reality was that the Ineos was always across, and so the call was good. But a good close race, and you can see that if you can make these boats do that, then people can get excited about watching.
Yeah. How about you, Gary? What was your takeaway?
Well, I did not think it was a foul, and I thought, it was an exaggerated head fake, and Ed makes a good point. You're going a length every 2.5 seconds. But a couple things. The case for windward gates has been made here to get the boats out of phase going downwind, which is really good. And looking ahead, I'm thinking that American Magic was really going fast against Luna Rossa in that one race before the unfortunate capsize. And if she's able to get going again, she should be just fine and erase all the past. And as I've said, it's not going to hurt to have extra races when you get to the finals into the Cup. So maybe the forced error and unforced error here will pay off. So we'll see. And then finally, I know that Skipper Terry Hutchinson's been under a lot of pressure to get his head outside the boat and not spin his head down grinding all the time. And I'm going to be very interesting to see this weekend if there's some kind of change in the format, the crew format on that boat.
Yeah, I sort of, that's been the sort of nagging thing in my head as well, is that, it's, who are we to say, of what Terry ultimately does. But I mean, it does there become a point, Ed, curious to hear your thoughts, where, if it was a high breeze kind of situation where it is better to have two grinders, and, or is it too late in the game to sort of throw?
No, I don't think it's too late in the game to have somebody head out of the boat. I mean, Ed and Jonathan and Pedro and I have all done more than our share of being a tactics person. And the whole key to being a tactician is seeing what trends are going on and adjusting as you're going. And you cannot do that with your head down grinding all the time. Look, Terry's not a big guy. He is, I think, 52 years old. So he's not going to be as strong as some of the others. And they've missed a few things. So if I were the coach, which I'm not, I'm just like you guys, armchair sailors here. But that's the one thing I think they need to change is whoever the tactician is, eyes outside the boat 100% of the time.
What are your thoughts, Ed? You've sailed with Terry long enough. I mean, is sort of this, is it better or worse to have him on the boat from both a leadership point of view, but also just a pure performance mechanics of getting the boat on the course?
Yeah, Terry is an exceptional tactician, and he sees the race course like few others do, and he understands the equipment around him and the people around him like few others do. So he knows when to push and when to ask for a little more out of the group, and he knows when to lay off because it might be too much for the situation at hand. But those things, as Gary said, you can't make a good decision if you're fully engaged in something else, or if you're only seeing half the picture. And the way these boats are set up at the moment, if you stay on one side all the time, you only see half the picture. And we saw that with the two tacks that we just talked about with Luna Rossa, that the two helmsman thing is great a lot of the time, but when you had to be accurate in a very tight situation, it's hard to get that right without a lot of practice against another boat. And that's what all of these teams are lacking right now, is that time against other boats. So I think if everybody had a full season and a full year to go experiment and learn and make mistakes, I'll bet they would make some changes in how they're set up. and you'd find the best solution would be ultimately on all the boats. But right now, this is how the guys have set up, and making a change is challenging because you're taking away somebody who's doing a job, of grinding at times, and saying, we want you to do something else, but you can't just put another person in there. And if you take Terry out and say, we want you to look all around, well, then, you're either missing some power on the handles, or you're replacing, one of the guys that's doing something else that's important. So I don't know how easy that would be to do. Even if it was the right thing, I don't know.
Yeah, it's amazing that, particularly in the broadcast, we sort of like, at first it's a lot of the talk of the foils and the difference of the boats. And it's amazing that we've sort of gone full circle back to what humans are doing on the boat and how they do it well, right? At the end of the day, they're sailors.
Fundamentals.
Yeah. How about so what's your take on this weekend? What was your view from out there in San Diego?
Well, I'll spin it a different way. One of the things I'm engaged with all the subjects we're talking about, but one of the things that was cool was they had the delay because they had Cunningham or downhaul problems on the mainsail of Ineos, and apparently from the post-race interview and stuff, it sounded like what they did was just set it for upwind and left it on, and then at the end of the race, Ben alluded it to like a laser race where you have your Cunningham upwind and they weren't able to ease it. And it made me focus again. I think Jonathan brought it up a while back, and Ed too, about the airfoils and the aero side of this game being something that's super important. And I don't know with these twin skin mains and the TV coverage, can we as viewers really see what's going on as well as you can when you're on a boat? And it's cool, you can see all the telltales. They've got rows of telltales in a lot of different places. I guarantee you they're for a reason. But certainly like on a windsurfer sail or catamaran multi-hull boat, the Cunningham being such a big power thing that it's quite possible that Ben was quite depowered going downwind, and we didn't see the full Ineos in the downwind leg. But it's going to make me focus a little bit more on trying to spot what differences I can see in the sail plans in the upcoming races too.
Any other thoughts on the sail setup there, Ed?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing that we just don't know. It's all the things that are happening inside and up in the top of the sails. And certainly having your Cunningham on for upwind is not what you want for downwind, or you wouldn't have the ability to adjust it. So clearly there's going to be times where you want more and sometimes when you want less, and upwind and downwind are different. So, that was certainly a little bit of hand behind the back on one leg of the course.
Guess that's what kept it tight. Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
The other cool thing is having done that America's Cup back when the catamaran sailed against the monohull, and when we had two boat training with two almost 65-foot catamarans, one with a wing sail and one with a soft sail, is we learned that when the boats are going downwind faster than the wind speed, i.e. VMGing faster than the wind speed, which these current boats do, the boat ahead, it's the bad air the trailing boat never gives bad air to the leading boat. You can't jibe on the guy. You can't even look behind you and say, oh, we're set up great for this puff here, because the puff you're going to get is up there slightly to windward and on your bow, on your weather quarter. And all those things are really interesting to look at too in the viewing and think about, because there's times tactically that the jibe on the other boat totally takes a whole new picture, and it's fun to watch that. But essentially, for the lead boat to be gassing the leeward boat, they're almost the same position as they are going upwind to give bad air, slightly to weather of the trailing boat's track, and a couple, a little bit ahead.
And to me, it's amazing that they can see the breeze, at that pace and with that much going on, to be able to sort of look around and see what's coming next. It's mind blowing. But
they're flying way up in the air, so they're looking down on the race course.
Gotta be
Well,
a big
both boats, I think, were going faster than they were last week. I mean, just look at the 50 knots. I think that both boats achieved. You know, it's a pretty incredible number. You kind of get used to speeds in the 40s, but 50 knots, you know, and how much wind speed was there?
It's an 18 to 22 was the range.
I mean, that's pretty incredible. The other thing that struck me was the quality of the comms on the British afterguard. I thought, you know, just listening to all the boats, they have the most sort of collaborative communication scheme. And, you know, you hear on the Italian boat, it's a little bit more Jimmy and a little bit less, you know, sometimes Bruni, but, you know, things seem to me like they've got a really good communication loop going on Ineos right now.
Mm-hmm. So, all right, so we'll move quickly here. The next racing is January 29th, which, what is that, Friday, right? Gary, any insight from American Magic? Last we checked in with them, that, you know, they sort of finally opened up their doors a bit, and they've shown the panel that's going in place. And from my understanding, the boat is back together. The Humpty Dumpty is there, but all the internals are about to go back in. You're hearing the same?
The best thing for American Magic is to get out in the water and get that first windward leg behind them and be within 1 or 2 boat lengths, either ahead or behind, and all that just goes away. I mean, look, it spoke volumes of the whole system that they got some assistance there, not only with the rescue, but with the build. And I think for New Zealand, they desperately need to keep 4 boats in this game. So I think American Magic will be okay. And like I said earlier, they were going pretty darn fast against Prada, and we saw some clear mistakes in the earlier races. So you race them, and they're just fine. But it's a best-of-7 series, and you can't, you know, 4 races are going to go by really fast, so they need to come out swinging from the first gun. And it's going to be, you know, we just don't know what's going to happen, and it makes it the reason why this is going to be so much fun to watch this round.
So speaking of coming guns out blazing, would you, anybody here, if you were Jimmy Spittle, and he's not afraid to mix it up, knowing that American Magic's maybe a little, you know, maybe a little skittish coming out, just go at them hard and go them quickly. What would you guys do?
It goes both ways when you do that, when you're over aggressive.
Yeah, the other thing the other way to look at it is don't go aggressive at them, because you know they're going to have some problems at some point around the course. So, or at least you anticipate they will. And that, you know, who knows? But like Gary says, you know, this series can be over in 2 days. And, you know, yeah, wow.
Crazy.
And one of these campaigns will be out, and both campaigns spent well over $100 million on them. The drama is just beyond belief to me about how high the stakes are. And, you know, I don't know if it's 2 days or 3 days, it could be 4 days, but it's going to happen fast.
All right. So happening fast also is the Vendee Globe boiling into the finish. This is actually just as nuts, I think, you know, of these top 4 boats here. Let me just do a screen share quick. This is where they are at as of this morning, right, Jonathan? Zoom in there. And,
yeah. Go ahead and zoom in a little bit, Dave.
There you go. So what are we looking at?
Okay, so
600 miles.
Coming up to the northeast corner of the northwest corner of Spain, the famous Finisterre, and then you can see where the finish is just in the Bay of Biscay there. So the leading boats have 600 miles to go, and there's actually one more recent picture than this, which if you see the boat that's highlighted there, the yellow boat, that's Charlie Dolan, and that's Louis Burton. Those 2 guys have been locked in an incredible duel now for the last 4 days. And with Boris Herman slowly sneaking up behind him, now it's about 60 miles behind, but he's got a 6-hour time benefit coming his way because of the rescue he did in the Southern Ocean. So it's really all on for the podium, and there's actually a couple of the boats just behind that are still within range as well. And as you can see from the screen here, there still is one really tricky passage yet to go, and there appears to be sort of a bimodal solution. You know, what Charlie's looks like he's planning to do is cut pretty close to Finisterre, and then the wind eventually comes from the south across the Bay of Biscay. The other guys look like they're lining up to try to pick up this next low that's coming in, and it would be approaching the finish from the north in a completely different wind. So, you know, 600 miles to go after 80 days, it's still all on.
All right, let's bring up the amateur weather site here, but this is absolutely the best. This is the best one, right, Eisler, as far as amateur goes?
Yeah, Wendy's got great graphics. So, you know, what Chris Bedford says is go with a site that you're comfortable using. And this one has a lot of tools. And,
yeah,
you know, you get the two good global models. You got satellite that you're showing now. So, well, you know, they've got some great graphics.
So we're looking at, this is today's Monday, Tuesday. Does it do, Jonathan, for those hedging this next system, does it get them what they want?
Yeah, it's still, there's still some disagreement between the different models. Actually, can I share my screen for just a sec?
Yep. Okay.
Because the race site actually has a pretty cool thing where you can actually move the weather forward in time. And I'm not sure which model this is. So here's where they are right now. Are you guys seeing my screen?
Yeah.
Do share.
Let's see. How do I do that?
The down bottom, the green button.
Okay. Okay. How's that?
Perfect. You're almost there.
There you go.
You're in.
Okay, so you can see the bright yellow, that's Charlie Dolan. Right on his tail, that's Boris Herman. And the lead, what was the leader, Louis Burton, has now jibed and is converging with those two. So this is the weather as currently right now. And I'm going to advance the weather by 24 hours here. So you can see it gets pretty hairy. Like 24 hours from now, they're going to be somewhere close to Finisterre, you know, where these guys to the north could have quite a bit more wind. But does that wind get them to the finish? Let's advance it a little bit more. There's 36 hours. So it could be light air running in at the end there. Anyways, it's just, they must be just pulling their hair out. I mean, the combination of being at sea for now 80 days, and, you know, usually now you're sort of in preserving your gear mode and just getting to the finish line, but not this race. They're having to go, you know, full out 100%, you know, inshore style trimming and everything for these next 2 days. So it's going to be fun to watch.
So what do you think about?
You watch that weather there, Jonathan, just keep it on that. You can see if you just mentally project the rum line into the med, the wind's going to go right as they sail on this run. And normally when the wind goes right, if the wind field was even all over, you'd hit the right side of the course looking downwind to take advantage of the shift and when the ladder rungs rotate in your favor. But with as the coloration shows, there's more velocity outside going against the shift, and that's the interesting quandary and why they do weather routing and why they sail the races.
Yeah, and those boats are highly sensitive to wind speed, so another knot of wind speed is basically another knot of boat speed.
So pushing hard, I mean, how do you you've been in the short end of the game long enough, Jonathan, just mentally, how grueling is it?
Well, you know, you're putting up as big a sail as you can manage. You know, you're trying to trim as much as you can. You know, you're having to get some sleep, but you're keeping them probably to 20-minute naps, and you know, you're moving your stack around, and you know, they're fighting hard, I can tell you.
And Jonathan, sailing through the Bay of Biscay, especially if you're trying to do it, which they will have to at night, you know, there's a massive amount of fishing activity and you know, shipping activity that goes through there on boats that are not always well lit and that are not always you know, sounding your alarm. So you got to really keep a lookout.
That's very true, Ed. Thanks for bringing that up. Especially off Finisterre, there's a tremendous amount of not only commercial traffic, but unlit fishing boats and you know, balls in the water and all kinds of things. So you can bet they're watching their radar a lot. And the other thing that's changed is coming from the south. Now they're in the north, where it's a long night and a short day. So they're spending a lot more of their time at night.
All right, so we'll keep close tabs on that one, and you know, if you got money on the table, hopefully you come out all right on this one, Jonathan. Well, cool. All right, we'd say hit on the big ones. Anybody doing any fun sailing? Anything exciting coming up?
Yeah, we got on the Pyewacket, the Volvo 70. There's a fun race here in San Diego this weekend. We've got a training session on Friday where it's supposed to be blowing 30 knots and pouring rain. Not San Diego. And then on Saturday, we do a 60-mile race down halfway to Ensenada, rounding an island in or a rock in Mexico and come back. So that'll be pretty challenging. We'll finally get to see the turbo Volvo 70 in Big Breeze.
All right. Well, make sure to report back and bring your phone and your video camera for us, will you?
I'll have somebody else bring their phone.
How about you, Gary?
My biggest sail in the next week or so is to deliver my boat from Annapolis over to Oxford, and I'm waiting for a good northwester with the wind, with the temperature above 32 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
I do have a pretty full schedule coming up this summer, though, on a Curve 50 with Art Santry on his boat, and we're going to do Block Island and Annapolis, Newport, and a whole variety race weeks and stuff throughout the summer. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, it's amazing the number of events that are sort of like, as this pandemic kind of rolls on, you know, the announcements of events that are happening just keep as if it's like situation normal, and it's kind of crazy. I know things change, and speaking of, I did see today the RC44s are resuming the fun, and Ed, you're listed amongst the tacticians of that group in the first event of Slovenia, which would be pretty cool in May. Maybe give us a quick rundown on that circuit and what you think, because a lot of teams haven't sailed together in a long time.
Yeah, I mean, that was the last boat I sailed on. That was March 10th last year, and on March 11th, I flew back to the US and on March 12th, they closed the borders to the European travelers. So it was pretty interesting that we've been staying in touch and talking about it. And, you know, every event that comes, you know, there's about 2 or 3 months ahead, they let us know what's going to happen with it. And it's going to be, you know, postponed and postponed again. And eventually the whole season was. And the one nice thing about the class is it's small enough that, and family oriented kind of, you get a family feel about it. That everybody just stays on the phone to each other and says, hey, what do you think? And all the owners, you know, are communicating through the class management about what they want. And so, you know, they took our event that's supposed to be in Porto Rose in Slovenia in April, and they just moved it to a late part of May, you know, hoping that the travel comes back and everybody can move around a little easier. But if it doesn't, they'll push that off until the fall, and they'll go to the next event, which is up in Sweden, and you know, and hopefully we'll eventually get started. But as you can imagine, and I know that with like the nude events and things, you know, nobody from the event standpoint wants to be the first one to say, oh yeah, we're doing this, everybody come, and then have any kind of a problem. So you know, the guys are being pretty conservative and, you know, just really waiting for international borders to open up.
On the 44s, so those fleets are pretty much, the boats are handled by the class. Who's putting them together and make sure that you just show up and go sailing?
Yeah, well, each team has their guys that, you know, assemble and disassemble the boat, but the class moves them around. So they basically, all the boats move together, and that's a cost savings measure, and they get stored together, and they don't take up much space when they're disassembled. They take up the same space as a 40-foot truck container, shipping container, and then each team gets a 20-foot container for all their sails and tools and things. So that stuff can just sit in the corner of a yard and wait until it's time. And then literally within 3 or 4 days, they can put everything back together and we can go race.
And how do you guys stay sharp other than kind of gathering over Zooms and kind of talking about sailing? But you got this group that hasn't sailed together for a year now, and you're right here in the middle of it.
Well, we stay sharp by, you know, sending each other jabbing emails and texts on our birthdays and things like that. But it's, I mean, there's not much you can do. Everybody knows their job on board. It's the same team when we get back together. But we do need to have a few days to shake the rust off before things get started. And that being said, I think everybody, like our team, the Peninsula sailing team is, we have guys from, I think, there's 9 guys on the boat, and I think there's 6 different countries represented. So, you know, while we don't see each other all the time, each person's trying to keep busy in their particular area on other types of sailing, whatever that might be. So we're all dying to get back out there again, and you know, we just hope it's soon.
And how about real quick on your helmsman? Are you sort of forcing him to go sail little boats and stay active, or is he just?
You know, it's really funny that in our case, I don't know how the other teams go, but in our case, the owner of the team has done more sailing in the last 12 months than any of the rest of us, probably than all of us put together. He's gotten out on a J80, on a J70, on, you know, little boats here and there, and had a great time. And I'm excited to see him out there. You know, but it's killing us to watch him go sailing and we can't. So.
Cool. All right, Jonathan, you're the last to go here. What's on your schedule?
Boy, nothing much. It's my wife's birthday next weekend, so I'm focusing on that. But we had some good sailing this last weekend. A regatta, a long-standing Seattle institution called Frigid Digit. It's always been a laser regatta, and then in recent years we've added other dinghies like the Opties and the Tasers and now the Arrows. So I sailed Tasers one day and Arrows another day. So it's great to keep dinghy sailing. I think I sailed more days in the dinghy this last year than probably any of the last 10 years. So that part's been great.
You'll be plenty fast. You got it down.
I wish.
Well, no.
I wish.
It was a blown out weekend here in Newport, and it looks like we're into the low teens and a hard northerly next weekend. So it's kind of dead here, but it was thumb racing for me. That was it. That's all I got. And even that was scary. So, well, thanks, gents. We'll see you next week. Same time, same place.
Look forward to it. We'll know a lot by then.
Yeah, we'll know a lot. That's right. All right. Thanks, guys. See ya.
Have a good week, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Bye.